Samurai Unicorn is an upcoming third-person survival action game about harnessing the power of a samurai guardian to save a city from a power-hungry group of dream eaters. There's a ton that we already know about the characters living in Sydney 3 and the factions and corporations that control all of it, so my goal here is to deliver all of that to you in a nice bite-sized video. Before I get into the juicy details, here are the basics that you should know about the game. You play as a rookie detective named Chloe as she fights off the vermin that have infested parts of the city. They're being controlled by the Dream Eaters, a group of unique boss enemies which we'll have to defeat one by one. The game will have different explorable hubs where we can get to know more about Sydney 3 and its complex social tapestry. You'll have to prove to the people living there that you're a worthy member of the community in order to make a real difference in their lives. And so our story starts when Chloe becomes the host of the parasitic gauntlet and gains the power of Samurai Unicorn. This causes her to become the target of the many factions vying for control of the city. Now let's dive more into the world that you'll be exploring. After resource wars and ecological disaster devastated the previous two cities of Sydney, Sydney 3 was born. The sprawling megacity stands as the megacorporation Goliath's crown jewel. But in any city owned by a corporation, the people living there aren't being put first. Low-income housing districts are being polluted by the industrial sector, food is artificially produced by just one company, there's no such thing as private media, the police have been privatized, inequality, you get the point. However, spread through Sydney 3 are pockets of tight-knit communities, places that provide respite from the harsh realities of living in these corporately run megacities. Between missions, Chloe will be able to explore places like this and learn more about the people that live there and how her actions affect them. A little bit of hope in an otherwise dark and twisted world. Unfortunately though, the Dream Eaters are beginning to awaken around the city and take hold of territory. And from the industrial sectors and lower levels of the city, a dangerous condition is spreading. Born from a new series of VR devices, citizens are succumbing to a parasite that drains their life and leaves them as nothing more than mindless husks. Things aren't looking too hot in Sydney 3. Now, Samurai Unicorn has a lot of characters. The game's website lists about 20 of them, but here are the main ones you need to know about. Our protagonist is Chloe Mitchells, a young detective on the Sydney 3 police force using her skills to find out what happened to her father. Chloe's godfather and mentor, Gabe Adams, is a weathered and skeptical veteran on the force. He plays the role of good cop, though, and often tries to help the lower-level communities in ways that keep their troubles off the record. Samurai Unicorn is a mysterious samurai guardian generated by this parasitic gauntlet that Chloe finds presumably early on in the game. His main goal is to keep her safe from the Dream Eaters. And speaking of, Morpheus is a visionary who wants to empower the people of Sydney 3 to realize their dreams and break free of the shackles that Goliath has placed on them. He seems to be the one in control of the Dream Eaters, but tries to use his charm and persuasion to achieve his goals, resorting to violence when those fail. Devin Solomon is the Goliath PSYOP assigned to monitor Chloe and her activity, providing analysis on the parasitic gauntlet's growing abilities. Their boss, Director Soren, is the secretive head of the Goliath Special Research Division. She's one of the only people granted direct access to the executive board and is authorized to operate however she sees fit to expand Goliath's influence and technological superiority. Last is the elected leader of the police council, Commissioner Rowe, the most powerful person in the city, yet he's entirely subject to the whims of Goliath's board of directors. Now that I've thrown all those characters at you, let's get into some of Sydney 3's factions. Goliath, the mega corporation I talked about, and the Sydney 3 police force, or S3PF, basically control the entire city. Goliath has a special research division, which is a covert department dedicated to the acquisition of new technology by any means necessary. Their main focus right now is the study of any Dream Eater technology that can be salvaged from close battles with those creatures. Goliath controls the police force, which is highly militarized and tends to act swiftly and harshly towards the city's citizens. With outposts and checkpoints scattered across Sydney 3, it's impossible to go a day without being stopped and aggressively searched by an S3PF officer. Like I mentioned earlier, people have managed to find some hope in the world by coming together and forming their own groups, including Faux Pas, a group of hackers entirely dedicated to the destruction of Goliath. Other groups like the Hornsby Devils and the Tusk Motor Club are maybe a little less aggressive, but still provide the people in Sydney 3 a sense of community and purpose. Then, of course, you've got the high lifers, the citizens of the upper levels who were born into luxury and destined for high-paying jobs. The underdogs on this list is the Mechanized Workers Group, a band of robotic people who have formed a collective in hopes of securing equal rights and better working conditions. They're mostly composed of mechanical people, but they are known to allow members who strongly align with their values and wish to help. What a beautiful thing. Last are the Paranoid Doomers, convinced that the world's decline is the result of the younger generations straying from their traditional values. In their hopeless regression, they have formed a religious order of knights and clerics. Wow, the lore here is absolutely crazy, and if you're interested, I'd go read up on the Samurai Unicorn website and/or check out the game's Patreon page. They post a lot of devlogs and updates over there, and you'll be able to get early access to the demo when it's released later this year if you join. The last thing I want to touch on is the game's combat. I've been playing through the Resident Evil games for the first time recently, and boy am I excited for this one. The main enemies we'll face are these zombie-like vermin, which aren't too bad on their own, but can be extremely dangerous in groups and overwhelm you pretty quickly. Vermites are, I guess, the vermin's offspring that'll leap out at you from these pods if you get too close. No one seems to know where the vermin came from originally, but increased sightings in the lower levels confirm that their numbers are definitely growing. Of course, we'll also be fighting the Dream Eaters in what will probably be epic boss battles, and consuming their hearts will give Chloe new abilities. Since Chloe's a detective, you'll also have to collect evidence, filling out a database that'll give you better insight into the background story of a mission's location. And that just about wraps things up. Thank you all so much for sticking around and learning about Samurai Unicorn with me. This looks like a very special game that I absolutely would like to cover in the future once we get some more info about the demo. Until then, check these out.